vastus medialis is the most medial of your quadricep group. So to target the vastus medialis, we are going to go into external rotation of the tibia. By going into external rotation, we are creating greater myofascial tension along the medial aspect of the femur, which is going to allow for greater... Hey everyone, Steven here from Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to squat by demonstrating some squat regressions. Specifically, we are going to be demonstrating for you the box squat. The squat is one of the best exercises that you can perform, and it's a movement pattern that you perform on a daily basis. Every single time you go to stand up or sit down, you are squatting. Every single time you go to drop the Browns off at the Super Bowl, you are squatting. Every single time you go to get into your car, you are essentially doing a pistol squat with a lateral shift and a twist. It is one of the 7 primal patterns, along with pushing, pulling, bending, lunging, twisting, and gait. Unfortunately, one of the problems that most people either don't know how to squat properly, or they lack the proper mechanics in their hips, knee, or ankles, and they have some type of dysfunction in that area. So if you are somebody that can't squat properly, or if you have problems in any one of those areas, these squat regressions would be an excellent way for you to be able to learn how to squat. This next progression is going to be the box squat. For the box squat, basically the principles is going to be very, very similar to your standard squat. The only difference is we are limiting the depth of the movement by placing a box or some type of bench to be able to reach. With regard to this one right over here, the higher the box, the easier it's going to be because we're decreasing the range of motion even more. Whereas the lower the box, the more difficult it's going to be because we're increasing the range of motion. So right now, we have this set up so that when Cassandra does the exercise, her thighs are roughly going to be parallel to the ground. But I'm going to have Cassandra demonstrate from the side. Everything is the exact same as you would do a typical squat. You want to maintain the retroversion of the pelvis, shoulders held back, chin is tucked in, your crown of the head is up toward the sky, and with your eyes you're looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension. And then with regard to the actual squat itself, you want to maintain a neutral alignment in the spine. So your ears, your shoulders, and your pelvis should all be in one straight line. Right now I'm just going to have Cassandra do a few repetitions just to demonstrate the box squat. So right now, when she gets to the bottom position, her greater trochanter is just above the knees, so right now she's roughly doing a half squat with regard to the actual depth of the movement. And then if this was too easy, what she would do is just gradually decrease the size of the step. Now, with regard to this exercise, as with all the other squat variations that we have done, you can also play around with the foot position to target different fibers in the actual quadricep muscles. So I'm going to have Cassandra demonstrate from the front as well. And with regard to the different movements, if you recall, when we are doing any type of knee extension, we have 3 main knee extensors. That's going to be the vastus medialis, the vastus intermedius, and the vastus lateralis. We also have the rectus femoris, but that's also a hip flexor. In terms of pure knee extensors, that is going to be those 3 quadricep muscles. Now, depending on how we play with the levels of internal and external rotation of the tibia, we can target specific fibers in those different muscles. So right now, I'm going to have Cassandra just get right up to the bench, and we're going to perform the exact same thing, only this time, we are going to be focusing on the vastus lateralis fibers. If we want to target on the vastus lateralis, what we're going to do, the vastus lateralis, if you recall, is the most lateral of the quadricep group. So in order to emphasize those fibers, what we would want to do is go into more medial rotation. So Cassandra is going to point her toes slightly inward. Whenever we're doing the vastus lateralis, 5 to 10 degrees of internal rotation is all you need. Any more than that, you're going to place a lot of torque on the knees. But from this position over here, she's just going to squat down until her butt touches the bench. Everything else is exactly the same. Pelvis is in retroversion, shoulders are held back, chin's tucked in, crown of the head is up, eyes are looking down to put the dura mater under tension. And with regard to the spine you want it to be parallel or higher to your shins. That is specifically to target the vastus lateralis. If we want to place more emphasis on the vastus intermedius, we would do what she was doing earlier with the feet pointing straight ahead because the vastus intermedius is right down the middle. Now, if we want to target the vastus medialis is the most medial of your quadricep group. So to target the vastus medialis, we are going to go into external rotation of the tibia. By going into external rotation, we are creating greater myofascial tension along the medial aspect of the femur, which is going to allow for greater recruitment of the vastus medialis. We're going to do everything else exactly the same. Pelvis is in retroversion, shoulders are held back, chin's tucked in, crown of the head's pointing up toward the sky, eyes are looking down toward the floor to put the dura mater under tension, and she's going to squat while maintaining her torso parallel or higher to her shins. And with this position right over here, so one thing worth noting right now, when she starts to sit back, she's starting to move out with her knees. By moving out with your knees, you're actually taking some of the tension off of the vastus medialis. So right now, I want you to squat, and you want to squat, come back up to the top. You're going to squat, but maintain your knees pointing straight ahead. Yeah, so you're keeping the external rotation of the tibia and just squat. So let's remove some of the external rotation because I have a feeling that's what's limiting some of your movement. Perfect. Now when you sit back, you're going to bring your knees straight ahead without going into abduction. Perfect. So that's one thing worth noting. If you do find that you're starting to splay out with your knees, chances are that you might just be going into too much external rotation. So all you have to do is just take it back a little bit, and that's going to allow for greater recruitment of the vastus medialis fibers. Now, aside from just playing with the internal and external rotation with regard to the actual tibia, we can also play with the width of the actual stance. With regard to the foot position, the closer our feet are together, the narrower our base of support, the more core stabilization is going to be required. And also we're going to create greater myofascial tension on the lateral aspect of the femur, which is going to target more the vastus lateralis. So that's another way that we can target the vastus lateralis, where the wider our base of support, when we go wider, that's going to give us a nice stable base. So we don't require as much core activation. And also now the myofascial tension is going to shift to the inner thighs. So now when we end up going into a wider stance, we're going to also be targeting the vastus medialis and also the adductor muscles a little bit more. First, I'm going to have Cassandra demonstrate the vastus lateralis and also the abductors. So she's going to do the box squat with her feet touching together. And she's going to do the exact same thing. So now she's just going to squat down until her butt touches the seat. Everything else is the same. Pelvis is in retroversion, shoulders held back, chin tucked in, crown of the head up, eyes looking down to put the dura mater under tension, and spine is parallel or higher to your shins. And this is going to target more the lateral aspect of the femur. Next, if we wanted to target more the medial aspect, so the adductors and the vastus medialis, we can also go with a wider stance. So right now I'm going to have Cassandra go into a nice wide stance, and she is going to squat down until her butt touches. Everything else is exactly the same with regard to the retroversion of the pelvis, shoulders held back, chin tucked in, crown of the head up, eyes looking down at the floor to put the dura mater under tension, and the spine is parallel or higher to the shins. And then aside from that, you could also do a couple of the movements. So you could go wide stance with feet in, neutral, feet out. You could go narrow, feet neutral, in, out, and then you could do just a neutral stance. With regard to these different exercises, again, you could try out the different ones, see which one's most difficult. Whichever one you find the most difficult, that's going to be the one that you need the most. And also, with regard to this one, if you have any issues with regard to stabilization, you would want to start with the wider stance. You're going to have a much more wider base, which is going to create a lot more stabilization in your own body. Whereas if you are somebody that has pretty good balance to begin with, if you get your feet closer together, you're going to have to require a little bit more core stabilization because your weight base of support is going to be a lot more narrow. But that's pretty much it for these exercise variations right over here, and that's pretty much it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these types of videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you again tomorrow.